The stars outside were nothing like Earth. They were colder, sharper, and seemed to watch with an ancient silence that filled the medical bay of the Horizon asterisk. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her medical gloves, her hand steady but her heart racing. Another birth in deep space was always complicated, but this one felt different. Sung Ho and Yuna Park held each other's hands, their faces a mix of hope and worry. They had been part of the deep space exploration team for 5 years, and now far from home, they were about to become parents. The medical bay was a clean, white space with soft blue lights that made everything look calm and cold. "It's time," Elena said softly. Yuna took a deep breath. The birth was carefully planned. Every medical detail had been checked and double-checked. The Horizon asterisk was more than just a ship. It was a home for over 200 crew members from different parts of the galaxy. Humans, Krell, Vordian, and Nexian beings worked together, explored together, lived together. The birth process was quick. Medical robots assisted Elena, their silver arms moving with perfect precision. Advanced technology made childbirth in space almost routine. Almost. When J1 was born, something changed. Most babies cry when they first come into the world. It's a sharp, sudden sound that shows they are alive. But J1's first sound was different. It wasn't a cry of pain or shock. It was a sound that made everyone in the medical bay stop and listen. The cry was soft at first, like a distant song. Then it grew, not louder, but deeper. It was a sound that seemed to carry weight, heavy with something more than just the first breath of life. The medical robots paused. The alien crew members outside the medical bay looked at each other with confusion. Elena had delivered hundreds of babies during space missions. She knew every sound a newborn could make. But this was new. This was something else. Sung Ho and Yuna looked at their son. He was perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy lungs. But that sound, that cry, is something wrong? Sung Ho asked, his voice tight with worry. Elena shook her head. No, he's healthy. But she couldn't finish her sentence. The cry continued. It wasn't sad. It wasn't happy. It was like a memory of something lost. Like mourning for something no one in the room could understand. Outside the medical bay, the ship's crew watched through the glass. The Krell representative, a tall being with blue-green skin and 4 arms, tilted its head. The Vordian next to it, smaller, with skin that looked like polished stone, made a soft clicking sound. "Something is different," the Krell said. The Vordian nodded. "The human child. His sound is not like other sounds." J1's cry began to change. It became a low hum, almost like a song from another world. Elena checked all the medical monitors. Everything was normal. The baby's heart rate, breathing, brain activity, all perfect. But that sound. Yuna held her son. The cry slowly became softer, not quieter, but gentler. Like a memory fading, but not forgotten. "Welcome to the universe, J1, she whispered. The medical robots returned to their stations. The alien crew members went back to their work. But something had changed. Everyone could feel it, even if they couldn't explain it. In the vast darkness of space, surrounded by stars that seemed to watch and remember, J1 Park took his first breath. And he cried, not for himself, but for something much bigger. Something nobody in that moment could understand. 5 years passed on the Horizon asterisk. J1 was not like other children. Not because he looked different or acted strange, but because of the stories he told. Dr. Akira Tanaka watched J1 play in the ship's special learning area. Colorful blocks and holographic toys filled the space. Other children built simple shades. J1 did something else. The city was blue, J1 said, placing his blocks in a complex pattern. Not like water blue, like memory blue. And the buildings, they sang when the wind came. Akira wrote notes on his digital tablet. This wasn't the first time J1 had spoken about places that didn't exist. Or maybe they did exist. Once. Seung-ho and Yuma had learned to listen without interrupting. They knew their son was different. The ship's doctors had checked everything. Medical scans showed a healthy brain. Psychological tests came back normal. But normal didn't explain J1. The people there knew how to listen to stones, the boy continued. His small fingers moved the blocks, creating a city that seemed to have its own breathing rhythm. The stones had stories, old stories. Akira leaned closer. What kind of stories, J1? The boy looked up. His eyes were too serious for a 5-year-old. Stories about forgetting and remembering. In the observation room, alien crew members watched. The Vortian scientist, named Coral, turned to the Krell researcher beside her. The child speaks in patterns, Coral said. Not like children should speak. The Krell nodded. Its 4 eyes blinked in a slow, thoughtful way. He speaks like a memory machine. J1 didn't play like other children. While others ran and jumped, he would sit quietly. Sometimes he would draw. Not child drawings with stick figures and simple houses. His drawings looked like complex maps. Cities that twisted in ways that didn't make sense. Landscapes that seemed to breathe. One day, he drew a massive structure. It looked like a building, but also like a living thing. Curves that weren't curves. Angles that changed when you looked away. What is this? Akira asked. A library, J1 said. But not a library for books, a library for memories. Yuna brought the drawing to the ship's research team. They were used to strange things. When you live in space with different species, strange becomes normal. But this was different. The research team scanned the drawing. Computer systems tried to understand the design. But the design didn't follow normal rules. It was like the drawing came from a place where physics worked differently. It's impossible, one researcher said. Nothing is impossible, J1 said, suddenly standing beside them. Just not remembered yet. The researchers looked at each other. A 5-year-old should not speak like this. Akira continued his research. He recorded every story, every drawing, every strange comment. Something was happening with J1. Something that went beyond normal child development. At night, when the ship was quiet, J1 would sometimes stand by the large viewing windows. Space stretched outside, black and full of stars. His small hand would touch the glass, and sometimes, just sometimes, the stars seemed to move differently, as if they were listening to him. We remember, he would whisper. We always remember. Seung-ho would find him like this, a small boy, standing, watching, remembering something that nobody else could see. The Horizon continued its journey through space, millions of kilometers from Earth, carrying a child who spoke in riddles, a child who seemed to carry memories of places that might have existed, or might never have existed at all. But they were memories, and they were real. The laboratory was quiet, too quiet. Hoon Kim stared at the computer screen, his coffee going cold beside him. Numbers and strange patterns danced across the display. He had been working for 3 days straight, stopping only to eat and sleep for short moments. Something was different about J1's DNA. Very different. Most people thought DNA was just a simple code, a set of instructions for building a human body. But Hoon knew better. DNA was complex. It was a language. And J1's DNA was speaking a language nobody had heard before. Normal human DNA looks like a ladder. Neat, organized, predictable. J1's DNA looked like a maze. No, not a maze. A map. Computer, Hoon said, enhance section 7 delta. The screen zoomed in. What looked like random genetic code began to show patterns. Not just patterns. Memories. Genetic memories were not new to science. Some animals carried information from their parents. But this was different. This was like a library built inside DNA. A library that could tell stories. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked into the lab. She knew something big was happening. What did you find? She asked. Hoon didn't look up. Everything, he whispered. And nothing. He showed her the screen. Alina's medical training had taught her to be careful, to not jump to conclusions, but what she saw made her heart beat faster. The DNA wasn't just a code for making the human body. It was a record of something much bigger. These sequences, Hoon said, they don't just carry genetic information. They carry memories. Memories of civilizations. Alina looked closer. The genetic code twisted and turned like a complex 3D puzzle. Some parts looked like normal human DNA. Other parts looked like something else. Something alien. How is this possible? She asked. Hoon shook his head. I don't know. But J1 is not just carrying his own genetic information. He's carrying the genetic memories of something else. In another part of the ship, J1 was drawing again. His small hands moved quickly. This time, he was drawing something that looked like a giant machine. But it wasn't just a machine. It was alive. It breathed. It remembered. Sung-ho watched his son. What are you drawing? He asked. Jae-won looked up. His eyes were old. Not the eyes of a 6-year-old. A memory keeper, he said. A place where lost things are remembered. The ship's alien crew were watching too. The Krell researcher, named Vex, turned to the Vordian scientist. The human child, Vex said, he sees things we cannot see. The Vordian nodded. Some memories are too big for one body, it responded. Back in the lab, Hoon continued his research. Each new discovery made less sense. The DNA wasn't just storing information. It was telling a story of loss, a story of survival. These genetic sequences, Hoon told Alina, they show contact with civilizations we don't know about. Civilizations that might have been destroyed. Alina looked worried. Destroyed how? Hoon's face was serious. Completely. Erased, but not forgotten. Their memories live here. In this DNA. J1 continued drawing. His machine library grew more complex. Lines that curved in impossible ways. Shapes that changed when you looked away. Something was coming. Something old. Something that had been waiting to be remembered. And J1 was the key. The asterisk horizon asterisk moved through space. Stars watched. Memories waited. And a small boy drew the universe's forgotten stories. The space station looked dead. But dead was the wrong word. It looked like something that was waiting. J1 stood in the exploration team's preparation room. At 12 years old, he was smaller than the other team members. But nobody saw him as a child anymore. Not after what he had shown them. I want to go, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm for a child. Captain Lee looked at the boy. Then at the medical team. Then back at J1. Something about the boy made experienced space explorers listen. The derelict space station floated in a strange part of space. No maps showed its location. No historical records mentioned its existence. It was just there, waiting to be found. The station is not empty, J1 had told them weeks ago. It's sleeping. Now, as the exploration team prepared, everyone remembered those words. Standard protocol said no one under 18 should join dangerous missions. Protocol also said you should never send a child into an unknown space station. But J1 was not a normal child. Dr. Akira Tanaka checked the boy's special exploration suit. It was designed for him. Smaller, lighter, with extra sensors that the adult suits didn't have. Are you ready? Akira asked. J1 nodded. His eyes looked like they were seeing something else. Something far away. The transport pod moved slowly toward the station. Its metal surface was strange. Not damaged. Not old. Just different. Like it was made from material that didn't exist in normal space. The station is listening, J1 said suddenly. The other team members looked at each other. They had learned to pay attention when J1 said things like this. When the airlock opened, something changed. The air felt different. Thick, like memory itself had weight. J1 walked first. The other explorers were surprised. Normally, they would go first, check for dangers, protect the child. But something about J1 made them follow. The station's inside was not what they expected. Rooms that changed shape, walls that seemed to breathe, colors that moved when you looked at them. "This way," J1 said, walking down a corridor. His hand touched the wall, and the wall responded, not with light or sound, but with something else, with memory. Images appeared, not on screens, but in the minds of everyone present. Massive ships, battles in space, civilizations rising, civilizations falling. The Krell explorer, named Vex, watched in shock. "How is this possible?" Vex asked. J1 didn't answer. He was listening to something else. At the end of the corridor, a large room opened. In the center was a device. Not a machine, not a computer, something else. "A message keeper," J1 said. The device looked like it was made of light and memory. Shapes moved inside it. Stories twisted and turned. When J1 touched it, everything changed. Memories burst out. Not just images, not just sounds. Complete experiences. The feeling of entire civilizations. Their hopes, their fears, their final moments. The exploration team watched. Some fell to their knees. Some cried. Some laughed. J1 stood in the center, calm, collecting the memories like someone collecting important letters. "They were not forgotten," he said. "They are remembered." Outside the station, space continued its silent dance. Stars watched, waiting. And inside the station, a 12-year-old boy became something more than just a child. He became a keeper of lost stories. The Galactic Confederation meeting room was silent. Too silent. 12 screens showed 12 different species. Some looked like they had bones. Some looked like they were made of light. Some looked like they could be plants or machines. But right now, they all looked the same. Worried. J1 sat in the center of the room. He was 13 now. But nobody saw a 13-year-old boy. They saw something else. "Explain," said the Nexian representative. Its voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. J1 took a deep breath. "Civilizations are dying," he said. "Not just one, not just two, many." The screens flickered, data scrolled fast. Images of destroyed planets, broken ships, empty spaces where whole star systems used to be. "How do you know?" asked the Krell representative. J1's eyes were old, not the eyes of a child. "Because I remember," he said simply. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside him. She had become more than just a doctor. She was a guardian, a translator, someone who could help others understand what J1 was showing them. "The memories are not random," she explained. "They are a warning system. Genetic memories passed down through generations. Humans are not just carrying their own history. They are carrying the history of races that no longer exist." The Vortian scientist leaned forward. Its stone-like skin changed colors when it was thinking hard. "A cosmic memory bank," it said. J1 nodded. "There is a pattern," he said. "Something is hunting advanced civilizations, eating them. Not with weapons, with something else." On the screens, maps appeared. Red lines showed the paths of destruction. Whole sections of the galaxy marked with death. Not physical death, J1 continued. Memory death, erasing entire civilizations, so completely that no one remembers they existed. The meeting room felt cold. Each representative understood something big was happening, something they had missed. "Why humans?" the Nexian asked. Elena stepped forward. "Humans cry when they are born," she said, "not just from pain, from memory, from loss. Our first breath is also a mourning for something bigger." J1 drew something on a digital pad. It looked like a complex machine, but it was also alive, breathing, thinking. "This is how they hunt," he said, "not with ships, with something that eats memories. erases entire civilizations from existence. The screens showed more data, patterns of destruction that made no sense, entire star systems vanishing, not destroyed, just gone. How long? The Krell asked. Millions of years, J1 said. Maybe more. The representatives looked at each other. Some looked scared. Some looked curious. But all of them looked serious. What can be done? The Vortian asked. J1's smile was strange. Not a child's smile. We remembered, he said. That is the first step. Outside the meeting room, space continued its silent dance. Stars watched, waiting. The Galactic Confederation had just learned something important. Humans were not just another species. They were the universe's memory keepers, and something was coming to try and erase everything. Preparation looked different in space. J1 stood in the main strategy room of the Horizon Asterisk. He was 14 now, but nobody treated him like a normal teenager. Around him, holographic maps showed entire star systems. Red lines marked places of destruction. Blue lines marked potential defense points. We are not fighting with weapons, J1 said. His voice was calm. We are fighting with memory. The military leaders looked at each other. Humans, Krell, Vortian, Nexian, all species were working together. Something big was coming. Something that could erase entire civilizations. Dr. Akira Tanaka adjusted the holographic displays. Each map showed more than just space. It showed the paths of memory-eating entities that had been destroying advanced civilizations for millions of years. The enemy doesn't use normal weapons, J1 explained. They use something worse. They remove memories, make entire races forget who they are, where they came from. A Krell military commander named Vex stepped forward. Its 4 arms moved quickly, changing the holographic display. How do we fight something we cannot see? Vex asked. J1 touched the map. When his fingers moved, memories appeared. Not images, not sounds, complete experiences of lost civilizations. The room went quiet. Memories of planets that no longer existed showed up. Civilizations that had been completely erased, not just destroyed, forgotten. Humans are different, J1 said. Our tears when we are born, our ability to remember. These are weapons. The military leaders listened. Some looked confused, some looked scared, but all of them were paying attention. Elena Rodriguez stood beside J1. She had become more than a doctor. She was a translator, someone who could help others understand what was happening. Our genetic memory is our defense, she explained. We carry the experiences of races that have been destroyed. We remember what others have forgotten. Vex looked at the maps. How can memories stop an enemy that eats civilizations? J1 smiled. It was not a child's smile. Memories are alive, he said. They fight back. Training began, but it was not normal military training. Humans started teaching other species how to remember, how to hold on to memories so deeply that no force could remove them. Young human children learned special mental techniques. They practiced holding memories, protecting them, passing them down. The Horizon Asterisk became more than a ship. It became a school, a place where memories were protected, where lost civilizations could live again. J1 worked with teams from different species. Some training sessions looked like meditation. Some looked like complex mental exercises. Some looked like nothing at all. The enemy wants to make us forget, he would say. We will make sure nothing is ever forgotten. Weapon systems were built, but they were not normal weapons. They were memory amplifiers, devices that could broadcast the experiences of lost civilizations, machines that could remember. The Galactic Confederation watched. Something was changing. Humans were becoming something more than just another species. They were becoming memory warriors. Outside, space continued its silent watch. Stars waited. Memories moved like living things. And something was coming. Something that had destroyed civilizations for millions of years. But this time, Something was different. This time, they would be remembered. Space looked different when the enemy came. J1 was 16 now, but he was not like other 16-year-olds. He stood on the bridge of the Horizon Asterisk, his eyes watching multiple holographic screens. Around him, ships from different species moved like a single living thing. The enemy arrived without sound, without light. They were something between a weapon and a thought. "They are coming," J1 said. No one asked how he knew. They had learned to trust him. The first wave hit like a memory storm. Ships disappeared, not destroyed, just gone, as if they had never existed. But humans were different this time. Each human ship carried something special. Not just weapons, not just shields, but memory generators, devices that could broadcast the experiences of lost civilizations. "Remember," J1 shouted. The ships began to glow, not with normal light, with memories. Experiences of races that had been destroyed thousands of years ago began to fill space. The enemy did not expect this. Vex, the Krell military commander, watched in shock. Ships that should have been erased were fighting back, not with weapons, with memories. Entire battle formations of the memory-eating entities began to break apart. They could destroy ships, but they could not destroy memories. "We are more than bodies," J1 said. "We are stories." The battle was not like normal space fights. Ships moved in patterns that made no sense. Some disappeared and reappeared. Some changed shape. Some became living memories. A Nexian communication officer looked at J1. "How are we doing this?" she asked. J1 smiled. "We cry when we are born," he said, "because we remember what was lost." Massive memory waves spread across space. Each wave carried the experiences of civilizations that had been destroyed, races that had been forgotten, cultures that had been erased. The enemy tried to fight back. But how do you fight something that refuses to be forgotten? Ships from different species worked together. Humans had taught them something important: how to remember, how to hold on to experiences so deeply that no force could remove them. "Target their memory centers," J1 commanded. Specialized ships moved. They were not normal weapons. They were memory amplifiers, devices that could broadcast the deepest experiences of lost races. Space itself seemed to remember. Battles happened in places that were not places. Fights occurred in spaces between memories. The enemy discovered something they had never expected. Humans were not just another species to be erased. They were memory warriors. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time moved differently during this battle. Ships from the Krell, Vortian, Nexian, and human fleets moved like a single organism. Each ship carried memories. Each ship was a living story. The enemy began to break. Not because of weapons, not because of technology, but because they could not stop the memories. J1 watched the screens. His eyes saw more than what was happening. He saw what had happened, what could happen, what might happen. "We remember," he said quietly. And in that moment, something changed in space. The battle was not just a fight. It was a memorial for all the races that had been forgotten. The silence after the battle was loud. J1 sat in the medical bay. Blood from small cuts covered his arms. Around him, doctors from different species worked quickly. The Horizon Asterisk had survived, but the cost was high. Thousands of ships were gone, not destroyed, changed. Belina Rodriguez checked J1's vital signs. Her hands were shaking. She had seen many battles, but nothing like this. "We won," she said, but it didn't sound like a victory. J1 looked at her. His eyes were too old for a 16-year-old. "Winning is not about killing," he said. "Winning is about remembering." The ship's halls were full of wounded, Krell warriors with bleeding blue skin, Vortian soldiers looking like broken stone statues, Nexian communication officers who seemed more like light than living beings. But they were alive. Outside the medical bay, holographic screens showed the battle's results. Massive areas of space had changed. Some sectors looked different. Colors were not the same. Space itself seemed to have memories now. Vex, the Krell commander, walked into the medical bay. Its 4 arms moved slowly. One arm was missing, but it was alive. "We fought," Vex said. "But at what cost?" J1 touched a small device on his wrist. Memories began to play. Not like videos, like living experiences. Entire civilizations passed through the room. A Vortian scientist watched. "How are you doing this?" it asked. "We carry their stories," J1 answered. "Every race we saved, every memory we protected." The medical bay became a place of strange healing. Not just physical, something else. Memories moved like healing waves. Experiences of lost races helped wounded soldiers recover. Alina watched in shock. Medical technology had changed. Memories were now part of healing. "The enemy wanted to erase," J1 said. "We chose to remember." Ships outside were being repaired, but they were different now. Each ship carried memory generators, devices that could broadcast the experiences of races that had been almost forgotten. The Galactic Confederation would never be the same. Sung Ho and Yuna Park walked into the medical bay. They looked tired, but proud. Their son had done something no one thought was possible. "You saved them," Yuna said to J1. He shook his head. "We saved ourselves," he answered. Doctors continued working, but their methods had changed. Healing was no longer just about fixing bodies. It was about protecting memories. Vex looked at J1. "What happens now?" the Krell commander asked. J1 smiled. It was not a child's smile. "We remembered," he said. "We always remember." Outside, space looked different. Stars moved in new patterns. Entire sections of space had changed color. Memory itself had become a physical thing. The battle was over. But something bigger had started. Humans were no longer just another species. They were the universe's memory keepers, and they would make sure nothing was ever forgotten again. Years passed. Space was different now. J1 stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Memorial Station. He was no longer a teenager, but he was not exactly an adult either. Something else. Something more. Around him, species from across the galaxy worked together, not just as allies, as memory keepers. Every child born now understood something important. Crying was not just about pain. It was about remembering. The memorial station was massive, not made of metal or stone. It was made of memories. Living experiences from thousands of lost civilizations floated like colorful clouds. Each memory was a story. Each story was alive. "We are not just saving memories," J1 told a group of young students from different species. "We are giving them a home." The students listened. Some looked like clouds of light. Some looked like walking stones. Some looked almost human. But they all understood the same thing. Forgetting was the real enemy. Outside the station, space looked different. Colors moved in ways they never moved before. Entire sections glowed with the memories of races that had almost been forgotten. Stars seemed to breathe. Galaxies told stories. Alina Rodriguez, now an older woman, walked beside J1. She had watched him grow, watched him change everything. "How do you feel?" she asked. J1 smiled. "Remembered," he said simply. The Galactic Confederation had changed. No longer just a political group. Now a living memory network. Each species contributed their experiences, shared their stories, protected their histories. Vex, the old Krell commander, now led the Memory Protection Division. Its 4 arms moved differently now. Slower, more thoughtful. "We lost so much," Vex said to J1. "But we gained something bigger." Communication had changed. Ships no longer just sent messages. They sent experiences. Entire lifetimes could be shared in moments. Not through words, through living memories. Young humans were trained differently now. They learned how to carry memories, how to protect stories, how to ensure nothing was ever truly lost. Every cry is a memorial, teachers would say. Every tear carries a story. The enemy that had been destroying civilizations was gone, not destroyed, transformed. Its ability to erase memories had been turned into something else, a way of understanding, a way of connecting. J1 walked through the memorial station. Memories moved around him like living things. Civilizations that had been almost forgotten now lived again, not as ghosts, but as active, breathing experiences. We are not just survivors, he often said. We are storytellers. Outside, a new human child was born on a space station. When it cried, the cry was different. Not just a sound of pain, but a sound of remembering. A sound that carried the experiences of thousands of races. The universe listened. Space watched. And memories continued to live. Sung Ho and Yuna Park, now older, watched their son. They had seen him change everything. Not through weapons, not through technology, but through memory. What comes next? Yuna asked. Jaewon looked at the living memories around him. Galaxies of experiences, universes of stories. We remembered, he said. We always remember. And in that moment, everything was possible.